Razi, welcome to Manufacturing Happy Hour.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, and I'm excited to ask you. So we are literally at a happy hour right now. So if someone were to ask you at a happy hour, what does Aerodyn Combustion do? How do you answer that as if you're having drinks with someone?
Well, Aerodyn Combustion was formed to really solve a big problem in energy use, which is used in manufacturing, which is used in transportation and in homes and electricity generation and so on, a lot of which comes from burning fuel in something called a combustion turbine, which is the same as a jet engine.
Yeah.
But you can also use it on the ground for generating electricity or for in manufacturing or in industry applications and so on. And we have technology that we developed at the university, and I'm still at my university doing my day job, and trying to commercialize this research that we did at the university in collaboration with a major aerospace engine manufacturer. And we are now trying to find ways of getting it to many, many different customers on the ground first, and then eventually in airplanes.
Yeah, and your technology, I'm looking at my notes, it was originally developed for NASA, right?
That's right.
Tell us about that, right? There's got to be a good story behind that.
So I worked at NASA before I came to the university, and NASA was trying to solve the problem of carbon dioxide emissions from airplanes and the cost of fuel that, which is a big part of operating airlines, right? So NASA is a National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So don't forget the aeronautics part of it, which is where aircraft engines come in. And so I worked there on the idea of making the internal process of burning fuel in what we call a combustor inside of the jet engine, making that much more efficient and actually also producing more power for the same amount of fuel. So effectively, it means that you can make your jet engine lighter as well, which makes the airplane generally safer because of a lower weight engine. That's the goal. That was why we started there. And then, we realized that there's a lot of other users on the ground as well that can benefit from this technology.
Well, that's what I want to ask about as well, because I should say the way it's evolved is you serve natural gas pipelines with your technology now, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? Like how that came to be?
So natural gas pipelines right now have a shortage of capacity because the U.S., we're fortunate to have a lot of shale gas that's been produced in recent years. So there's a tremendous opportunity to produce more shale gas. But the pipeline pumping capacity is limited partly because of air pollution regulations that limit the amount of the capacity of these compressor stations around the country. And our technology has the ability to provide an increase in power, in capacity, essentially, that means, for different kinds of engines that the pipeline industry uses. And we are trying to use that opportunity to really validate and prove our technology on the ground in the real world before we go to the airplane manufacturers again, because the risk levels are much higher, obviously, in the airplane than on the ground.
Sure.
And so we have an opportunity to provide a benefit to the pipeline compressor businesses with similar technology.
So focused, started at NASA, focused on pipelines, and now you have your eyes set for the airlines as well.
So the airlines, buy airplanes, right?
Yeah.
From Boeing and Airbus and so on. But they also buy the engines from companies like Rolls-Royce, General Electric, and Pratt & Whitney, and so on. So our technology would be something that the engine manufacturers have to advertise to the airlines, because the airlines are the ones that are going to save fuel and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. They're interested in that. But they trust the technology that the engine manufacturers provide that goes with the airplane. So
sure. So there's a middleman there.
There's a middleman, and so that's who we have to work with to get to the airlines.
Well, I'm going to change gears here because I've got another question. You've talked about your day job already as a professor. How do you balance being part of a startup and being a professor? You're actually not the first person I've ever talked to that's balancing both as well. I feel like that's becoming more of a thing in academia. Is that, am I right there?
Well, I'm someone that worked in industry and worked at NASA, as I said before. I went to academia. So one of my goals in academia is to try to bring that experience to the classroom as well. So I try to get my students excited about not only the science and the fundamentals that I teach. So tomorrow evening, I'll be teaching my graduate level class in combustion, which I've been doing here for a long time. But the students are very interested in how can we take what we learn and apply it in the real world, right? So I need to set an example of that. You know, so I try always with my research to be always taking what I'm doing in my lab and getting it to the real world and the benefits to society as quickly as possible, and not just leave it to, you know, somebody in the future, because the needs are urgent right now. So there's a lot of motivation, but of course it's a challenge to be able to balance, you know, work and life and all of these at the same time.
Are you seeing more of the, because you were in industry first and then you went to academia, are you seeing more people make that transition? I feel like that would be tremendously valuable in this day and age.
Yes, I think, you know, I've known a lot of people that have done that. I wish there was more of that opportunity. Part of that is limited by how academia sort of values that, and I think that has changed. There was a time when academia was just too academic, you know, and I think we're all realizing in academia that our students benefit tremendously when they have professors in the classroom that can talk about the work that they've done as professionals. Just like, you know, in many fields that's natural. You know, physicians teaching medical students usually are also practicing medicine at the same time. And I think that should be true in engineering and in other fields as well, as much as we can, especially if you're teaching to develop professionals.
And remind me, you're a professor here in Indiana.
That's
correct?
Yeah.
What's I guess a final question. What's your impression of the state of manufacturing in the state of Indiana as well? I feel like that's a big theme here at this event. I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, I'm very fortunate to be in Indiana, which is really one of the top manufacturing states in the country. You know, certainly has had you know, changes over the years as certain technologies have changed. The automotive industry was pretty large in Indiana, it's still pretty large, but obviously has changed a great deal. I also have colleagues that work in autonomous vehicles and electrification of vehicles. And in my role as Associate Dean, I work with them to also bring those technologies to Indiana manufacturers and startups that would like to take those technologies and become world leaders and make Indiana world-class manufacturing, all of those areas as well.
So I saw you presenting earlier when I came in here, and you present to students. You've been in industry before. What's it like presenting to a group where there's a bunch of investors out there as well?
So this is new for me.
Okay.
I have not done an investor pitch before.
Yeah.
And I'm just like a freshman, you know, learning how to do something new right now. It's very interesting. I'm learning a lot because I think the way you have to communicate to an investor and the way you have to talk about the return on investment that an investor is going to be looking for is very different from talking about the technology itself. So it's great.
You clearly
it's tremendous that there is an opportunity here in Indiana, right in my backyard, so to speak. In the area of energy and sustainability that Generator is running here as a GBETA program. It's not doing that in many places around the country. So I'm tremendously lucky that it's happening right here in Indianapolis.
You just compared it to being a freshman again, which I like. What gives you that ability to continue to do new things, right? I could see someone being very complacent in industry, but you're like, no, I'm going to be a professor. No, I'm going to do a startup. What is that? What is it about you that gives you that drive for new experiences, continuous learning? This is the last question I'm going to ask.
That's an absolutely wonderful question. And that's something that I think the world today is changing a lot faster than, let's say, 100 years ago, right? So all of us have to be lifelong learners. And we try to teach our students that no matter how old you are, as long as you're healthy and you're curious, you'll always have opportunities to learn. I was born in a small island in the Indian Ocean, halfway across the world. And if I wasn't curious, if I wasn't exploratory, I wouldn't have come, not only to this country, but actually have lived in 3 countries in my life.
Wow.
And so, that's fun. That's always what you want to have in life, is that opportunity to learn.
Amazing way to wrap our conversation. Razi, it's been excellent having you here on the show.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.